up, people, and welcome back to RipeWrites, where I always like to where we talk. Well, hello, people, and welcome back to RipeWrites, where we talk about writing and we talk about how to improve your writing using psychological tricks. We talk about books, we talk about psychology. Mainly, we talk about books, okay, and how to write better and how to get published, how to start writing businesses, everything to do with writing. Basically, I like to call it the author's cove, okay? The author's cove, or the aspiring author's cove, which still an author in my book. Yeah, I have no sense of time or change. Just if you want to be an author, you're an author. That's how it works in my book, okay? So today we're covering this book. It's called Before I Go to Sleep, and it's by S.J. Watson. And it's a relatively old book compared to other books I've covered in the past here. I've covered one. But it's from 2011. So, centuries ago. Those are internet centuries for sure. Well, you know what? Let's just tell the truth. I did not finish this book. I think I got to I finished 80%, and the last 20% I couldn't do it because I was like, my life is literally
flashing before my eyes.
And I'm wasting it on this book. And I don't mean to sound harsh. I really don't. I don't, because there's a reader for every book. I like to say that. And it's true. There is. Now, what kind of reader?
Now,
the thing about this book is the concept is really powerful. The concept is a mental illness concept. It's of retrograde and anterior grade amnesia, which is basically a combination of two types of amnesia. So there's a conjunction of two amnesiac conditions. This patient can't remember memories that they've had, and they also can't form new memories. So every single day they wake up, it's like a tabula rasa, which means blank slate. It's a very terrifying condition if you think about it, and when you have both of those amnesia conditions into one, well, you have a thriller, but it's based on a real person. So this was also adapted into a motion picture with Nicole Kidman and Colin Firth and a third guy, a second guy, third person, not sure who. Colin Firth's brother. Spread the news, he has a brother who's also acting. It's a very easy read in the sense of the language that's used, the vocabulary is very simple. I don't think I've found a single word I did not know, which is a testament to my own knowledge. No, it's really a testament to the fact that this book does not really cover difficult language, and that's not necessarily a bad sign or indicative of anything negative. It's just the way it is, you know? Like, it's written in very simple language, which I think is good, and is good, yeah. You could tell the audience it's supposed to really be anybody, and it is anybody. I'm not going to go into the plot very much. I'm just going to look at the stylistic elements that I detested. I really did. So I'm not trying to be negative either. I'm trying to be critical. There are some things I really liked. Okay, like the author likes to really get into the protagonist's mind. First person narration is very emotionally laden. There's a lot of introspection throughout the whole novel, but I would argue too much for it to keep a solid pace. So there's a little bit too much introspection for me to be fascinated, and also it seems like it's trying too hard to perceive the world through the narrator, through the protagonist's eyes, as opposed to offering some sort of stability in the world around her. And I think that's a factor of the plot itself, given the fact that she has amnesia and she's the only source of information she has, like through her own eyes, and it just kind of shows you the absence of information. But what I mean to say is every moment is laden with significance. So every gesture, every eye piercing, there are details that are added that beat a dead horse in terms of how perceptive the narrator is. We kind of already know the narrator is perceptive, but it just becomes, it's too much, really. So one thing that I've noticed is a mistake the book makes is, if you look here, you won't be able to see it necessarily, but something happens, and so the guy goes, "Christine, Chris, are you okay?" It said, and with relief I realized it was Ben and I had been dreaming. I opened my eyes, I was lying in a bath, my clothes folded on a chair beside me, pictures of my life taped to the pale blue tiles above the sink. Yes, I said, I'm fine, I just had a bad dream. Now, this dialogue pattern is very frequent in the book, and that's why it's frustrating. And the reason why I've noticed it is because I used to do this, and I hated it. So that's why I hate it now. But essentially, the narrator just, yes, I said. That, generally speaking, is unnecessary. What this indicates is sometimes the things that are the most natural in a verbal scenario don't translate well into a reading and writing context. Yes, I'm fine, I just had a bad dream. But when this is written down in the book, it's kind of meaningless. It doesn't have the same effect. And also, it's kind of like adding a So all of these confirmations are a little bit unnecessary. Now, when they are necessary is when a confirmation is required. In this case, the author could have literally just said, I'm fine, I just had a bad dream. Or, even better, fine, just had a bad dream. So that makes it a little bit easier to digest, especially when you frequently have the same pattern. These filler words in dialogue are usually the following: yes, no, and names of some sort. So here he goes on a different page 226 if you're following. I don't know why you would be, but if you are. He goes, Christine, he said, you're not thinking. No need for that. He could just straight out just say, you're not thinking. But because the author tries to translate the way that he would talk to someone in person into his writing, it causes a lag. And he says on the same page prior to what I just read, he says, once again, why I haven't seen her even though she's supposedly my best friend. And then he goes, Christine, he said, you're not thinking straight. So it's a repetition of that same pattern of Christine, you're not thinking straight. Christine, you're not thinking straight. Next page, literally, he says, he closed his eyes. Christine, he began, I. No need for that. No need for that. It's a filler word that, once again, we use in regular dialogue, but it creates a lag in the narrative. So if we were to look at the same kind of writing, instead of saying, he looked hurt, Christine, please, you can add a more potent piece of dialogue there. Like, so I'm going to read the line prior. Would you, I said, like you told me about Adam, he looked hurt. That's unfair. Maybe that would have been more potent, more conflict-ridden than a defensive stance. And then the character replies with, why did you keep him from me? I said, you're as bad as Ben. Jesus, Christine, he said, we've been through this. Instead of Jesus, Christine, just cut that out and just say, Jesus, we've been through this. There's no need for Christine. Okay, that's the first thing that I noticed. That was particularly jarring. And it actually frustrated me because it's a mistake that I used to make. So here we have another error, okay? Here we have formality through dialogue. And dialogue is a very frequent issue I've had with this book, but page 165 at the bottom, the narration goes, Ben looked up from his own plate, his eyes wide with surprise. Christine, he said, darling, I don't. Okay, so darling, I don't. That's a little bit too formal for a husband and a wife. Darling, I don't. I didn't buy the darling part, especially since I hadn't seen it before. So once again, you get an odd feeling from dialogue that's misplaced, or you feel as though it does not belong to the character. Okay, now one thing I want to finish on is a good thing that the book did well. In the beginning, the very first page, the very first chapter, the author very effectively shows the stakes. Okay, the characters have to always have high stakes, especially for a psychological thriller. There has to be something that's worth fighting for or worth fighting against, or something that puts your protagonist's life in danger, or their sanity. Something that is a high enough of a stake so that the reader can root for the protagonist, or at least be fearful of the situation. Now, the stakes are drawn right at the up front, and they're very clear and they're very evidently high. So here we have the passage. So the bedroom is strange, unfamiliar. I don't know where I am, how I came to be here. I don't know how I'm going to get home. That is the first first passage, the first paragraph, and that's very effective because already the stakes are the following. I don't know how I'm going to get home. I don't know how I came here. So there's a sense of dissociation from her environment. There's a sense of danger, impending doom. There's uncertainty, and that's really important. So they've done that really well here. And then the next passage goes, I've spent the night here. I was woken by a woman's voice. At first I thought she was in bed with me. Then I realized she was reading the news and I was hearing a radio alarm. And when I opened my eyes, found myself here. In this room I do not recognize. Once again, do not recognize. Very eerie, very strange. You're intrigued. The reader wants to know more. So this was one of the most effective first chapters I've ever read in a book, like a psychological thriller. It was very effective. And the reason why it was so effective is because the plot is so strong. The author knew that, and they knew that, the author knew that, Watson knew that that was the gem of the whole novel. That's what made it stick. That was the essence of the book, and that's why it's so intriguing. And that's why this book was successful, because there's an intriguing element to that kind of reality of waking up and not knowing what your past was and not being able to remember your future every single day and having to rediscover yourself every single day. And that's why this book was effective. That's why it probably got published. I can tell you for certain it was not because of the dialogue. No offense, but it just wasn't. Okay? I'm looking forward to reviewing more books. I kind of want to review more of like Atwood's work because I think while she's not creating psychological thrillers, she has some amazing, amazing writing that we should be looking at. All right, thanks guys. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, please like. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.